Hello.
Hello, podcast.
Hello, podcasters.
Hello, podcast listeners.
welcome to our podcast.
This is Caitlin and Becca.
Yeah.
Back at it again.
Totally. And today we're talking about 1990 to 2005.
Correct.
And some of the important things that happened during that.
What should we talk about first today, Becca?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like we have so much to say.
I know.
So there were quite a few important icons in the 1990s, and one of those was Kurt Cobain.
Yes, and if you don't know, he was the lead singer of the band Nirvana, formed in 1991.
Yeah. I didn't know what to say.
Okay, Kurt Cobain.
He got a little sad in the 1990s, and he did kill himself with various drugs and a shotgun.
No, I don't know about that.
Oh.
No, this topic is kind of controversial because a lot of people think that Kurt Cobain did not kill himself, actually.
Oh.
Some people think that his ex-wife, Courtney Love, killed him.
Oh.
Did you know that, Becca?
I did not know that.
Yeah, well...
I've always been under, and it never occurred to me that, he didn't kill himself. I was like, he overdosed and shot himself.
That's what a lot of people think, but there's actually a lot of conspiracy theories that say that Courtney Love killed him because there's a lot of evidence with it. She hired a private investigator named Tom Grant to find him before he was actually found dead. It was, so Kurt Cobain, he was actually in a rehab facility and he escaped it, a few days before he died. And then, so she hired Tom Grant, and Tom Grant thought that Courtney Love was very suspicious. He was noticing things that didn't add up, and he was noticing a lot of things. And then when Kurt Cobain actually was found dead, there was the police didn't do that good of a job with the investigation. So when they saw the gun next to him and stuff, they just the police kind of just was it was a suicide, and they didn't really consider the fact that it couldn't be. So they kind of just wiped it off as it was a suicide. And then there was a lot of stuff that didn't make sense with Courtney. There was some stuff where she was saying, Kurt's always been suicidal, but some of his closest friends were no, he was never suicidal. They would never think that. And then there's also something with they found a lot of heroin in Kurt Cobain's body. So, and a lot of people say that the amount of heroin that he had in him, he could not have picked up that gun and shot himself after it. The amount of heroin, he would have been dead already, so he couldn't have killed himself. So that's one piece of evidence that would contribute to that.
Okay. So I guess Kurt Cobain didn't kill himself. I don't know. It's Jesus. Wasn't there a quote by him where he said he wanted to kill himself?
There was, but he's just funny.
Was he in a silly goofy movie?
Probably.
How
he was in Europe and he just wanted to kill himself.
Well, if he was in Europe, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not the great USA.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of other things happened in the 1990s, including the dot-com boom, which is also called the dot-com bubble sometimes. And it was just a stock market bubble that ballooned in the late 1990s, and there was huge market growth in the stock market.
Oh, okay.
And so by its peak in the 2000s, it's the investments rose by 800%, and they only fell 78% at its next peak in 2002.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
Big
impressive
bubble. Stock market.
Yeah.
Woo! I understand the stock market.
Wow. Okay. Okay, so now there's some political things that happened in the 1990s. A lot of controversial things. Now, one of those, we all know Bill Clinton, right?
Yeah.
He was an American president. He had some controversial things happen. Basically, so Monica Lewinsky, she was a White House intern.
Exactly. You don't say.
She stated that she had 9 sexual encounters with President Bill Clinton between the years of 1995 to 1997.
Ooh. Didn't he have a wife though?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And before Monica Lewinsky, there was this other case of a woman. She was Paula Jones. Paula Jones had a trial going on at that time too, where she was also accusing Bill Clinton of sexual harassment. Mm-hmm. So then Monica Lewinsky came out and also stated about her sexual encounters with him too. And Monica Lewinsky told her coworker Linda Tripp about these relations in 1996. So Tripp started recording their telephone conversations. And then in 1998, Lewinsky submitted an affidavit in the Paula Jones case that denied any physical relationship with Clinton, and she also attempted to persuade Tripp to lie under oath, but instead she gave the tapes, the phone conversations, to the court. And under oath, Clinton denied having any sexual relationships with Lewinsky, which is perjury. He lied under oath. That's like a crime. Yeah, and then news about the Monica Lewinsky scandal was revealed to the public in January of 1998. This led to President Clinton's impeachment, which is also the second American president to be impeached after Andrew Johnson, of course. So that's There's also a lot of really weird stuff you can read into about it. There's a lot of weird stuff. He was kind of freaky, wasn't he? I know. There was some weird things.
He's kind of weird. Yeah. But going even farther, there was a scare in the 1999 where computers had this issue where to save memory and code, they would only refer to the year as 2 digits. So the last 2 digits. So it would say like 94 or 99. Well, a lot of people were very scared that when it became 2000, since it would just be 00, the computers wouldn't know what year it was and they would just shut down. And so it was really crazy. So people thought that all the computers would shut off at midnight and planes would fall out of the sky and furnaces would stop working and cars would stop working and the radio signals would go crazy.
They thought the world was gonna end in 2000.
Yeah, and there's Y2K survival kits and everything. They were actual survival kits and people were going crazy about it.
Yeah.
It makes me think of what's it called, the 2012 world-ending scare, where in 2012 there was this ancient Mayan calendar that ended on December 31st, 2012, and so people thought that the Earth would collide with this planet called Planet X, where there would be a big natural disaster. Or they also thought about the Hadron Collider, which was they thought it would create a black hole and suck into Earth. It was crazy.
Yeah, I kind of remember that, but I was kind of too young though.
Yeah,
I was a child.
I was also too young. But I remember people would be the world's end.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. They were also scared of September 9th, 1999, and because they thought the 9999 would end the world or something. Which is
9999.
And it's
maybe
we can laugh at it now, but it was a genuine fear at the time.
They actually
that all that they had gotten too reliant on technology, and that once it became 2000, the world would end. And it's also part of it was there was a Bible verse that said that Armageddon was the place where the kings of the earth under demonic leadership will wage war on the forces of God at the end of history.
Whoa, what?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So there was this Bible verse that and that's what a lot of apocalypse movies are based on. Is that there's this Bible verse that the end of the world is people fighting against God. And so it's kind of wild. And once it got there, nothing happened really.
Yeah,
there were a lot of people who worked very hard before Y2K to make sure that the computers still worked. And other than a couple of vending machines that stopped working in Australia,
really?
Nothing happened.
Vending machines, wow.
Little do they know, there would be a scarier date than September 9th, 1999. Later in the years, 2001 on September 11th, there was an attack that was organized by the terrorist group Al-Qaeda, where they took over a bunch of like American airline planes, and they like crashed them into certain American monuments. And so they attacked the World Trade Center, which was also known as the Twin Towers.
Yes.
There's 2 towers in New York. They attacked the Pentagon, and then they were going for somewhere else. But the people on that flight actually revolted against the people on there, and they ended up crashing their plane into a field in Pennsylvania. And so Al-Qaeda was like motivated by like a holy war against the U.S. and how like it was something about like just like the U.S. was unholy and they had to fight against it. But 9/11 being such a big event obviously had a lot of conspiracy theories.
Yes, definitely did.
I think a lot of these are very funny. So we'll slowly get more ridiculous. And so the first conspiracy theory about Flight 93 is that's the flight that went into the field in Pennsylvania. That there's a conspiracy theory that the people didn't really revolt on the plane, but rather like it was like a military takedown of the plane, and that like the military shot down the plane.
Shot down.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we have another one, which is kind of on a similar route, that when the Twin Towers fell, they fell too perfectly, and it didn't look like the plane had caused it. Like they were like steel beams wouldn't be melting simply from the fire from a plane. And so they were like, this is controlled demolition. Like there must have been like a bomb set and stuff.
And it was planned.
And this one, And so the next one, this one's very silly.
Yes.
And my friend pitched this to me.
Not me.
They are very passionate about this. That Helen Keller caused 9/11.
Yes. That is an interesting one.
Their thing is she was deaf and blind and mute, and she somehow flew a plane.
Yes, and she also wrote a book too.
She also wrote a book.
Yeah.
So they're like, obviously she caused 9/11. She crashed the plane she was flying. Yeah. Completely ignoring the fact that Helen Keller did pass away.
She died
in 1968.
Yes, she died way before 9/11, but they're very passionate about this.
But I thought it was funny. And so I decided to bring it up because they're very passionate.
Just want to share with you podcast listeners about this because it's very
my friend's conspiracy theory is they are very passionate about it. But 9/11 led to a lot of things.
Yes.
Mostly
chain reaction.
Yes, mostly national terror.
Yes.
But it did bring us a couple good things.
Yes.
And
hear us out.
And one of those good things is a band called My Chemical Romance. You might have heard them. We played one of their most famous songs, Welcome to the Black Parade, as our intro. But it was made up of Gerard Way, who was the vocalist, Ray Toro, who was the lead guitarist, Frank Iero, who was the rhythm guitarist, and Mikey Way, who was the bassist.
Yes.
And they are considered one of the most influential rock bands of the early 2000s. Yeah. And it's why I bring this up after 9/11, is that 9/11 was actually the reason they started.
Yes, Gerard Way. He was on a train and he saw 9/11, right? Yeah.
And so to cope with this trauma, he decided he would use music as an outlet, and along with his brother and a couple friends, they started a band.
Yeah, I remember reading a quote from him where he was talking about how he saw like thousands of bodies dying and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, it was very sad.
And if you listen to their early album, which is I Brought You Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love, those songs Skylines and Turnstiles and Drowning Lessons are actually about 9/11, and they directly reference like 2 towers. And so, but that it's bringing it to funnier things. There's this thing called the 9/11 to 50 Shades pipeline, which I find
I've heard of this.
Very funny. And it's so, like we just said, 9/11 happened. Gerard Way was on a train and he witnessed 9/11. To cope with this trauma, he started My Chemical Romance.
Yes.
And My Chemical Romance is considered one of the most influential rock bands of the early 2000s.
Definitely.
And there was this woman named Stephanie Myers. And she was so inspired by their music that she decided to write a book series inspired by it. And that book series was called Twilight. And Twilight obviously had a big fandom.
Very big.
And where you have fandom, you have fan fiction.
Yes.
And so people were writing all sorts of fan fiction. and it just like kept snowballing. There was just always more, and eventually this fan fiction inspired a woman named E.L. James, who went on to write 50 Shades of Grey, inspired by Twilight fan fiction.
Wow.
So the 9/11 to 50 Shades pipeline is that 9/11 caused 50 Shades of Grey to be written.
That's crazy to me. That chain of events is insane.
It reminds me of like there's like the 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon thing, where it's like every person is no more than 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon. Like you're 6 people away from Kevin Bacon.
Wow.
That's what I think of when I think of that. It's like 9/11 is 4 degrees away from 50 Shades of Grey.
Wow. We're learning new things every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned about this earlier today when my friend told me
and then you told me about it. And now we're informing you podcast listeners about it. So now you guys can go and tell your friends about this.
We need a train. Everyone needs to know about the 9/11 to 50 Shades pipeline.
Exactly. It's really interesting and educational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sticking with the media idea of the 1990s and 2000s, one of the most influential movies of all time was actually Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
So Lord of the Rings, if you don't know what it's about, it's about a hobbit named Frodo, and his uncle Bilbo has this ring of power that was created to have that. So there were 7 rings created to keep all the different species and societies at peace with each other, but the humans wanted more power, so they created another ring.
The 9 rings?
Yeah, the 9 rings. And so they created another ring because they wanted more power, and this eventually corrupted this man named Sauron, and he started waging war across the entire world. Well, eventually the only way to destroy this ring is to throw it into Mount Doom. And so Frodo has this ring, and along with Sam, Merry, Pippin, Aragorn, Boromir, and Gandalf. Legolas, yes. And Gimli. They all help Frodo make it to Mount Doom and throw this ring into the fires of Mount Doom and evil. And so it was based on a book written much before the 1990s. But the movie, it really showed how technology could be used in that way, and how media had changed over time. And it was one of the first series where it had big stories. I think Star Wars came before it, but a big story across multiple movies, whereas before movies were mostly standalone.
It's a trilogy.
Trilogies
have come a long way.
There's
a lot of trilogies now.
Almost everything you expect in 3s now. And so it's things like Star Wars, which came in, I think, the 1980s, right?
1970s.
Late 70s. And Lord of the Rings really paved the way for you can have multiple things telling the story. And so So that's our podcast. I think. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I don't know. I think that's good.
I think we're pretty good there. So thank you for listening to our podcast. Like and subscribe.
Please like and subscribe so we get more viewers. Can post another podcast and you guys can listen to it and love it, and please subscribe.
And tell your parents about the 9/11 to 50 Shades pipeline.
Please inform them.
Yes.
Tell them that we told you.
Yes.
With that, I think.
I think we're all good. Thank you for listening.
Yep.
Now come on to this tragic affair. Wipe off that makeup, what's in is despair. So throw on the black dress, mix in with the light.